He's innocent. The day always comes if you're innocent.
Get on the train before it leaves the station. Wisconsin versus Avery, a complete fabrication. Get on the train before it leaves town. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello, everybody.
And we all know Stephen and Brendan were blamed, but it does not take a brain surgeon to see that they were framed. And yes, we know what this was about. The civil suit, the settlement that did not want to pay out, want to pay out. And you may hear this song, or maybe you don't get it. I suggest you look up TikTok, Manitowoc on Reddit. There you will find trial transcripts, evidence files, and reports, and you will start to fathom the corruption within the court. And as you shake your head because everything seems demented, you will find yourself in company of 3 on-bank judges at this sentence. But don't you worry, you're not going insane. You just happen to sit down on Zellner's Truth Train. Get on the train before it leaves the station. Final destination, inevitable exoneration. Get on the train before it leaves town. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down. Get on the train.
All righty. How's everybody doing today? Oops, wrong thing. Let me pull up some here.
Power off.
Okay. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Let me see. I need to actually do something real quick. Let me stop screen sharing for a second. Hello, everybody. I am going to make 2 moderators right now. Well, I'm going to make at least one because I know she's here. And see, is Jason here? I don't see Jason yet, but I don't see Diane either. Wait, I thought I saw Diane. All right, well, maybe they'll pop in later. Amber's here, though. Great news. So if you could just kind of try to, Amber, please, if you could just try to keep the chat from getting too, I don't know, rambunctious. I mainly, I don't mind you guys talking, but when it gets, too much in that chat, I feel like people aren't getting the information. So if you could please just kind of try to watch that for me, Amber, I'd really appreciate it. And obviously when Diane and Jason get here, I'm going to make them mods as well. I don't see them yet though, but they'll probably turn up. Okay, so we're here with Mr. Travis Williamson, everybody. Hello, Travis.
Hello, everybody.
Today we are going over Zellner's motion that we were trying to get yesterday, but it was filed so late in the day we weren't able to get it. So now we have it, and we're going to go over it. And there's some interesting things here for everybody to note and to see, and we'll kind of go through that as we go. So let me pop the motion up here for all of you to see. There it is. Okay, so this is Zellner's, motion to basically get the bones that were in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and essentially, and to do what's called quick DNA testing on them. A lot of this is going to be explained in here as to like why this all suddenly came up now. Why didn't this come up before? Well, that's because this expert was using, I believe what happened was he was using this technique to help identify victims of the wildfires here in California, which was in November. So all of you can understand how new and how basically how just new this testing is. It is approved by the FBI, and the results from a quick DNA test are able to be put into CODIS, and there's a lot of things. So it's basically a known science. It's not junk science. It's respected. So there's, so what we're going to be looking at here is her motion to test those bones, because she wants to prove that they are Teresa's bones, and therefore that it doesn't make sense that Stephen Avery would have been going and taking bones from the Manitowoc County gravel pit and putting them in his own burn pit. So that's kind of the basics of what we're going to be getting through here today, folks. So we're going to go ahead and move on to it here. So obviously you got this State of Wisconsin Court of Appeals, which is where she's filing this. Gotta get over here. All right.
So what I did in that red box there is reference subparagraph C of the motion, the basis, what she's doing.
Right.
And in order for her to get this type of testing, she has to show it's not been previously subjected to testing. This is just kind of an intro, and it tracks this. You'll see in the motion, hasn't been previously subjected to forensic testing. If it has been tested, it may now be subjected to another test using a scientific technique that was not available or was not utilized at the time of the previous testing, which would have been in 06, 07.
Right.
So wanted that to have right at the outset so people could follow along. Okay, what does she have to show the court to get them to approve this motion?
Right. Sorry, hold on. Okay, so did you cover all that already though? It may not be subjected to another test using so more recent scientific techniques basically. So okay. Yep. So here we go. Defendant appellants,
which you kind of hit on already, this new testing
being new and being so it meets the what were you calling it, what is it? You were calling it the three-legged stool or something, basically where there's 3 points you have to satisfy. Is that essentially correct?
And it's called different things, the Fry standard, the Daubert standard, but it has to be scientific and reliable, generally accepted in the scientific community,
right,
et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So defendant appellant's motion to stay the appeal, that's the appeal on the Brady, for the Brady violation of the CD. And because I believe the original motion for post-conviction relief is already stayed pending the outcome of the CD, if I'm not mistaken.
No, and it's complex.
Is it?
That CD thing went up. They sent it back on remand. She denied that motion in September. And so this brief that was due on the 20th originally may still be due. We don't know. We've got to wait for the decision of the court on this motion we're looking at right now. Right. But she has to file a brief on everything.
Oh, on all of it. Okay.
Brady, ineffective assistance of counsel, showing that the confidence of the verdict has been compromised or undermined.
Right.
Every basis has to be in that brief.
Okay. I had thought it was on hold already, but okay. So now it's all just getting lumped together now. So, okay.
Yeah, it was on hold. You're absolutely correct. It was
Right.
on hold. They
Just
sent it
while
back.
it went down, right? Yeah.
They told Judge Angie, hey, no, you really do need to decide this issue on the missing CD and the computer records and whether that's a Brady violation or not. We know how that came out. And then she had 40 days from the time the record was filed. Then she obtained a 30-day extension, and that date was 12/20.
Okay. Okay, so here is basically what she's saying is she wants to stay this appeal and remand the cause for new DNA testing of the suspected human skeletal remains recovered from the Manitowoc County gravel pit. So that's just basically what this is about, obviously.
Yes.
So, previous examinations of human skeletal remains located in Mr. Avery's burn pit and the Dassey Yonda burn barrel and the Manitowoc County gravel pit or Manitowoc gravel pit. So looks like item BZ only produced a partial DNA profile. That would be what with qPCR by Sherry Culhane?
Correct. And
Okay.
then, so, she's starting off here. Remember that thing at the very top said you got to show it's never been examined, or if it had been examined in the past, that there's a new, better way to look at it.
Right.
So she's talking about.
And this would be the old inferior way. She's illustrating, right?
Well, she's talking about a couple of things. One is that they only got a partial on BZ, the 7 Loki. And you've talked about it a lot in the past.
Yeah.
It only narrows it down to about 1 in a billion.
Right.
And then she talks about that the odontologist, the dental examiner, couldn't make really much of a positive ID.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was always really suspect of that gluing the teeth together stuff. I don't know. I found that to be shady, but who knows? Maybe it's right.
So
Let's see.
Scroll down from there.
Oh, more.
Yep.
So Mr. Simley, although unwilling because of his scientist nature, make 100% match. Use these words. It's as close to a positive match as you can get using one tooth. That doesn't sound very confident.
Doesn't sound very scientific either.
Yeah, right.
It's as close to a positive match as you can get with one tooth. So is it positive or not positive?
He didn't say beyond the reasonable degree of scientific certainty. So that tells me that flips my radar right away because he didn't say that.
So then, we get into what Dr. Eisenberg had to testify to here in paragraph 2.
So Dr. Leslie Eisenberg was unable to identify the bone fragments behind Mr. Avery's garage as anything other than those of an adult female, no older than between 30 to 35 years of age. Also identified human bones from the Dassey Yonda burn barrel, but she did not offer an opinion that the bones were female. Oh, interesting.
On those particular bones, the
burn barrel, on the Dassey burn barrel, right?
Yeah.
Right. So then we got, let's see. Dr. Eisenberg testified that there was a possible human pelvic bone in the Manitowoc County Manitowoc gravel pit. Dr. Eisenberg was never questioned about the 2 other bone piles with multiple human bones identified by her, which were present in the Manitowoc gravel pit.
Do you happen to have that that map that shows? If you have it handy, great. If not, just keep going. But
map. That one.
Let me see.
I have another one too.
Okay. Go to the other one, and then maybe we'll come back to that one so I can explain what that is.
Let me scroll down a bit. There you go. Scroll down.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, no, this is good. All right, so you see that red dot? It's basically in a center of that pond. If you can
Right.
move your cursor around that so everybody knows what we're talking about. Yeah. And then in the upper right-hand corner in this area, up to the upper right,
Conveyor
that
road.
it's that other area is going to be, so go back to that previous photo.
All right.
So had a lot of help from a lot of your subscribers today over in the Google chats. And,
Yes, by the way, I want to say, yeah, by the way, that reminds me, I want to say something. A lot of people were working on this today, folks, to bring this to you guys. Travis, Allie, and some others. They were busy digging up all this stuff so that you guys could clearly see the point that we're trying to make here. So they did an excellent job. Everybody should give them a hand. Not that they'll be able to hear it from wherever you are, but they did a great job.
So Julie, one of your faithful, prepared this particular document. So you can see this straight line between these two dots.
Right.
Now the county quarry, the county gravel pit, we'll just call it that. The county
Right.
gravel pit has changed. So this Google photo, it didn't look like this at all when these events took place. But what we're trying to show here is that the pelvic bones were found in an area in that upper right-hand corner.
So up here at the white dot up here. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And then down here below, there were two bone piles that were less than 50 yards apart.
Right here and here, guys.
Yep.
There's two white dots there, just so you can make sure you see those.
So half a football length apart, but this distance between the pelvic bones, suspected human pelvic bones, and these other two burn piles is over 400 meters. It's over a quarter of a mile away.
Right.
And so we'll come back to this, but Zellner has been tweeting all day today about the fact that the jury never heard about 3 bone piles during the trial. They only heard about one bone pile in that upper right-hand corner where the pelvic bones were.
Oh.
Okay. So we can go back now to the motion.
Okay. So, so this is Dr. Eisenberg, the possible human pelvic bone in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And Dr. Eisenberg was never questioned about the other two, the two that were down lower that I was pointing out to you guys that were really close together. She never was asked or said it or offered any kind of testimony on those, basically. Let's see. The map of the gravel pit bone piles is attached, which I just showed you.
So we'll be coming to that later, and that's going to be a very, very significant thing about all of this.
Right.
Okay, so previous court orders on April 4th of 2007. That's right after the trial was over.
Right.
It's standard to go in and enter a standard order for the preservation of blood evidence for independent defense testing. And that order was entered. Then on November 23rd of 2016, she was starting to enter negotiations with Fallon. And one of the things, if you scroll down there a little bit, on September 18th, a meeting took place in Madison, Wisconsin. She's meeting with the Attorney General's office, prosecutors. It was agreed a microscopic examination would be conducted of the suspected human pelvic bone found in the MGP, the gravel pit.
Right.
So keep that in mind. The AG agreed to submit the pelvic bone to a microscopic examination. Now she wants to do a different type of test, okay? But just keep in mind, the AG said, yeah, I'm good with that. We can
So he
submit
was willing
that.
to let her test once before Angela Sukowicz did
And
her
then,
thing.
right, Angela granted the motion out of the blue. You saw in Making a Murderer 2, the things that Zellner did to try and get that back to square one. She was unsuccessful. Now we're here. We're getting ready to file a brief on appeal.
Right.
Okay, so she
By
says,
agreeing to this examination, the state recognized that the outcome of this examination was material and relevant to the larger issue in the case about the location of the murder and mutilation of Miss Halbach's body.
right. Okay.
So okay.
The state knows that testing of these bones is important. That's her argument.
Right.
I think it's a good argument.
To where they had already agreed to it once. So, right.
Right. And then here she talks about just what you just mentioned, or the circuit court's action in dismissing the appeal and denying Mr. Avery's motion to reconsider and its supplements is an issue in his pending appeal. Okay.
Right.
So the next main topic is location of the bones, critical to the state's prosecution. There was some discussion about this yesterday in the live chat, and we'll get back to it today, and I'll answer all those questions if they come up again. But what's the big deal about the state having a theory at the time of trial, which was the bones in the quarry, as it was referred to in the trial, aren't human, you don't need to consider them. What's the big deal? So she takes you through it, why that's a big deal. Paragraph 8, she quotes what Mr. Kratz, former attorney, disbarred briefly attorney, banished prosecutor Kratz had to say at the time of trial.
Right. So we're down here.
And she points out what you have been saying for a long time, Erekose, is and others. How could you be found guilty, not guilty of mutilation, but guilty of murder?
Right.
And so she's pointing out that for the court. So
yeah, it's significant to me. That a lot of people have suspected that was the jury trying to send up a red flag because they felt helpless against these people, that the people in there that were just dead set on getting him guilty. Basically, a lot of people reasoned that the deal ended up getting made because they felt it would send up a red flag. It's a theory, right. But it sounds like a pretty good theory, pretty good guess to me.
So this next red box is she's anticipating a counter argument. So she says, regardless of the mutilation charge, the potential identification of her bones in the pit is relevant and material evidence on the issue of the location of the murder, the mutilation of the body, and the planning of evidence to frame him for murder. So she wants to make clear to the court that if someone made the counter argument, well, this is only relevant to mutilation, or him chopping up the body and spreading it out over. She's saying, no, don't get drawn down that path. This evidence, if you let me test it, what I'm going to bring you is going to show you the location of the murder.
Right. Right. So that's significant, because if her murder happened somewhere other than where the prosecution said it happened, that does what? It undermines confidence in the verdict.
Perfect. Yep.
So, according to the state, the murder allegedly occurred in Mr. Avery's garage and the mutilation in his burn pit.
So she was talking about this yesterday in her Twitter feed Q&A. This is something, if she's allowed this testing and it comes back the way she anticipates, I consider there to be three. The state's case was essentially a three-legged stool. And you had the blood in the RAV, which is a completely separate issue at this point. Right. You had the FL, the bullet fragment with Teresa Halbach's DNA on it in the garage. And then you had the bones in his yard. If she's able to place this murder MGP,
Right.
gravel pit, she knocks out two things at one time. She knocks out
The
out FL, and she
Right.
knocks out that she was burned in
Seeing
this
Avery's
fire
burn pit.
pit,
Right.
correct? And then by implication, she establishes that somebody, she believes it was the murderer, planted evidence to frame Stephen Avery. So she's basically setting up why it's so important for this stuff to be tested.
Right. Yeah. Well, I was just trying to give them the background and stuff, right? Okay, so stress the importance of the bones found. Okay, so now that is why the state has gone to such trouble avoiding the fact that the bones were moved. That's why you heard nothing about it here, because it does not fit with their theory that Avery is guilty. And that's why you have Kratz in closing arguments say, I'm not going to even spend 20 seconds on those bones.
I think we're going to see that in a second.
Yeah, so. Prosecutor Kratz stated in his rebuttal at trial, "These bones in the quarry, I'm going to take 20 seconds to talk about, because the best anybody can say is that they are possible human." Kratz acknowledged the importance of having the bones identified, but he dismissed the defense claim that the bones were human because of the lack of scientific verification for that claim. Well, if there's a lack of scientific verification, that's the state's problem, isn't it? Shouldn't they have been the one doing that?
If the jury had held them to their burden, but
right. Okay, so the identification of the Manitowoc gravel pit bone fragments as Miss Halbachs is relevant and material because it would prove that the murder and mutilation did not occur in a location tied exclusively to Mr. Avery. No reasonable trier of fact could conclude that if Mr. Avery murdered and mutilated Miss Halbach in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, that he would move her bones to his own burn pit. Basically, wouldn't move the bones straight to his own front doorstep. It doesn't make sense.
So it's like we predicted yesterday. She is laying out very carefully why the testing of these bones is significant.
Right.
And she go ahead and hit that paragraph 14, what the inferences are.
So two inferences are reasonable. Mr. Avery is not the murderer, and the bones recovered from Mr. Avery's burn pit were planted. There is a reasonable probability this new evidence would undermine confidence in the jury's verdict. I think that's a fair point. I think the probabilities are probably pretty good on that.
So she's laid out why she wants the testing. Now, that section we just went through. Now she's going to go into what is it that's available that can test these bones and determine what they are. Right.
So ANDE, Rapid DNA Identification System testing, is now available to test the Manitowoc gravel pit bones to determine their DNA identity. Which means basically they can track it to either Teresa, or if they come up with somebody else, which I had somebody asking me today, what if they come up with somebody else? But I'm going to leave that for later to answer. I'll give you my thoughts on that later. Okay, herein as Exhibit 3 to this motion. I see that rapid DNA. Dr. Selden's affidavit.
Yeah, we don't need to go down there. I've got the reference, but he went to medical school at Harvard, got a PhD at Harvard. He's one of those double Harvard guys that you just, when you're from Yale, you'll just love to hate. But anyway, so the guy's a total overachiever, but he basically came up with this, I don't know if that's pronounced ANDE, A-N-D-E system.
Andy, yeah. Could be.
But, it's like you said, in paragraph 16, it's approved by the FBI.
Credited, yep.
Yep. And it is certified for information that's processed by that system to go into CODIS.
Right, to go into CODIS, right.
And then apparently, I wasn't even aware of this. There's a Federal Rapid DNA Act of 2017 that was passed
unanimously. Wow.
And what this is, what this is going to be for is that when certain suspects are brought in, and I suspect it has to do a lot with Homeland Security and border protection and whatnot, but that they can test somebody right there and have a result in less than 2 hours.
Right.
Okay, but now we're going to go into, okay, so why is this important in this case? Why is Andy Rapid ID system important in this case? And then what we were speculating on yesterday, and what you said over and over and over again, Erekose, was, that California fire was recent. So, go ahead, start from there.
In identifying victims from the November 2018 campfire in Butte County, California.
That's Butte. But
Come on, man.
God love you.
Generated DNA IDs from approximately 85% of the cases, most of which were generated within 7 days. So they're not kidding when they say quick, folks.
Well, he was able to identify 85% of the cadavers or remains or cremains, or we're talking heavily calcinated bones, just a small handful of remains, and he was able to identify them. And so what do we have in our case here? It's the same thing. But go ahead.
Yeah, very similar. Okay, so on December 6th of 2018, current post-conviction counsel contacted Dr. Selden on behalf of Mr. Avery for the review of photographs and laboratory reports. So there you go, folks. She found out about this on December 6th, or very close to December 6th, and December 6th is when she reached out to him. That's, I imagine, why this got so, right up to the deadline of her brief. Because this, I think she really just discovered this at the beginning of December, in my opinion. Let's see here. So we got forensic anthropology photos depicting bones, recovery from the quarry, piles south of Avery salvage. Okay. So.
Yeah, and those photos were taken by Eisenberg, the forensic anthropologist. Those photos that she's referring to.
Okay. All right. Each of the above listed items of evidence was recovered from the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
Go back up a minute. I apologize. Go back up to, stop right there. B, he reviewed a stipulation at trial that the FBI conducted no DNA examination of possibly human bones from the quarry. Remember when we started right at the top, in order to, under the statute, to get
Never been tested, right?
Never been tested.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that means that tells us it's meeting that requirement.
There you go. Keep rolling.
All right. Let's see. To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that there is a reasonable likelihood of more accurate and probative results being obtained from these samples if processed using Andy rapid DNA technologies, which would reveal the DNA ID of these bones. The condition of the bones, as depicted in the forensic anthropology photos, are consistent with the bones from which Dr. Selden has recently successfully obtained DNA IDs in the November 2018 California campfire. So basically that, yeah, what we're talking about, the bones in the gravel pit and at Avery's, at the salvage yard, and in the burn barrels, they're all, pretty severely degraded by fire and calcined.
Right.
So yeah. And yet this guy was able to pull bones out of a wildfire, which, let me tell you, folks, wildfires are crazy. They burn hot. They burn real hot. So, I mean, those bones would certainly have been subjected to some temperatures.
I was just making a note that I think what she meant there is Exhibit 1. It doesn't really matter for our purposes.
Okay.
Okay, so she goes back to the statutory authority, which I cited for everybody at the top. And then she repeats it there. Paragraph 24.
Oops, sorry.
Paragraph 24. She talks about the bones were submitted to the FBI in 06, but not attempted due to the charred and calcium condition of the bones.
Right. So basically, they didn't have the technology to do it
Yes.
back then. State clearly believed that the identification of the Manitowoc gravel pit bones was material and relevant because of the prior FBI testing and the September 18th agreement between the parties to further examine the human pelvic bone microscopically.
Yep.
Yeah. So she's pointing out that the state clearly sees the need to identify these bones potentially.
Right. So this previous section, let's just pause there for a second. So yesterday we were speculating and we said, there's no question that Zellner is going to carefully lay out why it is the motion got filed 3 days before the brief was due. And I think she did a great job of that. She's talking about the system was used for charred remains in November. She somehow got wind of that, contacted this guy the first week of December. And
right.
Here it is, just shy of 2 weeks later, and she's got an affidavit from him under oath, and she's ready to go. So this next section is laying out the requirement that it hadn't been previously tested.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so as demonstrated by the trial court's April 4th, 2007 order, Mr. Avery was given the authority at any time to submit items of evidence for DNA testing.
Which is a standard order when you have a DNA statute like Wisconsin does.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so in State versus Armstrong, the court ordered a new trial in the interest of justice because new DNA tests established that biological evidence asserted by the state at trial as having come from Armstrong could not have come from him.
So keep in mind what she's saying here is that there's new testing, but what she's also saying is in the interest of justice, Kratz is saying that those bones aren't human. And that's just, she says that's just not true. And this testing will prove that they are human. And she's pretty confident. Not only are they human, they're Teresa's. Okay, go down below. That court found that the real controversy wasn't fully tried, and thus ordered a new trial because they didn't hear the full case. And she argued that above in this brief that they didn't hear about 3 bone piles. They only heard about one.
Right. Yeah. Okay, the court found that the real controversy was not fully tried and thus ordered a new trial. A new trial was necessary in the interest of justice because the jury did not hear the important DNA evidence and heard evidence which was later shown to be inconsistent with the DNA evidence. All of the material evidence was not presented to the jury, and the integrity of our system should afford a jury the opportunity to hear and evaluate the evidence.
So that's a big case right there for her. Okay, let's go down.
Mr. Avery's request. Oh, go ahead.
Hicks is the big case that she needs to satisfy. And, she's talking about how the Andy rapid DNA ID testing would make it material, that this was evidence was not presented to the jury and would potentially mandate that a new trial be ordered in the interest of justice. So Hicks is the big Wisconsin case, and she's spelled it out for the court there.
Right.
Oh, 28, she's going to pay for the costs. What else is new?
Right. And conclusion. In order staying the appeal and remanding the cause to the circuit court for a determination as to whether an order should be entered for the Andy rapid ID testing by Dr. Richard Selden of the Manitowoc County gravel pit bone fragments described in Exhibit 1.
So probably everybody's wondering right now, okay, where's the tsunami? Where's the jaw drop? And it's coming. It's about 5 minutes away. We're not even there yet. So she's filed an excellent motion. It'll probably be granted. She wants these exhibits described in Exhibit 1. And in about 5 minutes, we're going to see that something major was discovered today by our team that no one else has picked up on the internet, social media, Reddit. This team, Erekose's team, figured this out. I want you to pull up that Exhibit 1. Let's look at what she wants to test. And while we're going through this real briefly, I want everybody to try and remember what her tweets were yesterday in the Q&A about whether the Halbachs would object to this evidence being tested, and little things she said, you know, assuming the state still has the bones. So she wants item 7411. It's in quarry pile number 3. Wants 7412. 13, 14, and 16. I've put red boxes around 7411, 12, 14, and 16. We'll come to those in a second. So those are in pile 3, and one of those is in 1. And then 4 more items, 7419, 7422, 7424, and 8675. I've highlighted in red too, 7419, 8675. 8675 is a real big one because what is that? Possible human burned cut pelvis fragments. The 7 in number, N equals 7, 7 in number. Those are the pelvic bones. They're in quarry pile number 1, which is again over 400 yards from 2 and 3.
Right.
So let's go back up just real briefly. 7411, 7412, 7414, 7416, scroll down. 19 and 8675. Some of those numbers were just banging a hole through the back of my head. And it was because I'd recently watched Allie's video on the bones that were returned to the Halbach family. And it was also because I'd recently gone through Adrian's notes about queso. So let's go to queso in the excerpts. So that's a total of 9 sets of bones. Now I want the ones with just my quick excerpts. Just
that one?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So there was 9 things she requested, and I put a red box on 6. This is queso. Scroll up so they know we're not playing, you know, goofy games with them. This is page 1114 of queso. Any of you can pull it up. 9/20/11. That's 5 years post-trial. On 9/20/11, Mark Uyghur, Attorney Fallon, and Norman Gahn, who are both with the AG's office and were both trial counsel, neither one of which is on the appeal anymore. They were both substituted out this summer. They reviewed the items under the property tags along with Dr. Eisenberg's report, not her, but a report, determined which bones could be returned to the Halbach family. First item, 8675. That's the pelvic bones. They returned those to the Halbachs in what year? 2011.
It was 2011. 9/20. Yeah, 9/20.
Scroll down. 7411, 7412, 7414, 7416, 7419. That's 5 plus 8675 is 6 items. All of those items I've highlighted are items that were returned to the Halbachs 5 years ago.
So you guys are understanding the dilemma there, right?
Oh man.
Yeah, it's
It'll
wild.
it'll
I mean,
it'll sink in a minute.
yeah. I mean, we were showing you in the master list of these items that she was asking for, and here in Queso, we find out that all of these items, well, 6 of the 9, right, that she asked for, it was 6 of the 9 9 items that she asked for in total, wasn't it?
She asked for 9 items that
Right.
her expert reviewed all of the pictures.
Right.
There's 9 sets of bones. They're not individual bones. Each one of those items could be a handful of bones.
Groups of bones, right.
But he said, I want 9. 6 of them, they don't even have. And what's really interesting is that the AG's office would have been talking to Catherine Zellner in 2017 about letting her microscopically test the pelvic bones. And they kept delaying. And then Judge Angie decided that motion out of the blue.
Yeah.
They didn't have the pelvic bones to test.
Right. So that's going to create a problem, obviously, because.
Well, Linda Kay, that is a possibility. If they weren't supposed to get rid of those bones because they could potentially be tested. Now, if those bones were buried in a ceremony, graveside ceremony, then that could cause the AG to have to go in and get a motion to exhume her cremains from her grave, her coffin.
Wherever they were placed in 2011.
And what kind of a rift do you think that's going to cause between the AG and the Halbach family?
Yeah, do you think the Halbachs are going to be like all that happy about agents of the state wrapping themselves in the Halbachs anymore? I think the Halbachs might have some issues with that after this, possibly. Or if they have to actually go and dig this up, that would be, I'm sure, they would have some issues. And that's it for those, right? So now Rubber Ducky was asking, what does it mean then if the state can't provide Zellner with these bones? What does that mean? How does that shake out?
So it's kind of what the question I just answered. It's so this doctrine of law is called spoliation. And spoliation doesn't mean leaving milk out too long. What it means is if the state, if either party, the state in this case, destroys evidence, loses evidence, or taints evidence that it knew it should have protected and preserved. That's the big issue that you fight over.
Right.
You got to prove
because we've all shown you guys the order that they were supposed to follow to preserve this stuff. So they have failed to do that. The state has failed to do that. So
what would happen is if that ends up being the case, that the exhumation of the body, because if they are all in that casket, they could exhume, I keep saying the body, they could exhume those remains.
Right.
And then they have photos of all of these bone pieces. And then it would be a jigsaw puzzle. And they'd say, okay, here's, 80, 7411, here was 7412. And try and piece that all back together and then go forward with the testing. But, if they're not, and the defendant is prejudiced, what the law says is that you're entitled to a new trial. And then if the state decided to go forward with the new trial, they would be given an instruction that basically would sound like this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you're instructed that the state was in possession of evidence that consisted of items A, B, C, and D. This evidence would have been helpful to the defendant, and based on this evidence, you may have determined am not guilty based on that evidence alone. You're instructed to find that the state's losing this evidence. You're to infer that that evidence would have been beneficial to the defendant.
Been favorable, yeah.
Yeah.
Automatically default that it would have been favorable if they lost it, folks.
Yeah. And
That's
so
the
in
big
some
one.
cases, that's huge when it's a thin case. You know, if she can blow out the blood, then they've got nothing. In other cases, it's it may be like they lost the murder weapon, and but they've got a mountain of DNA evidence, and so it doesn't really matter. But in a case like this, that would be freaking huge. And then there's a million ancillary or sub issues. You can click that off if you want, Eric. I think we're done with the documents, but the sub issues are, what's going to happen between the relationship between the Attorney General's office and the Halbach family. I mean, it's
the Halbachs, yeah.
What on earth were they negotiating on last summer in 2017 to microscopically test pelvic bones? I mean, what the heck were they talking about?
Right. Yeah. Why? Yeah. What did she hope to learn from that? Right.
So, and then it raises questions about the brilliance of Kathleen Zellner and her strategy. Is this one of those things where she's done this intentionally? She hasn't laid this part out, so us armchair detectives go out and look at this ourselves? Or is this something that, I can't imagine she's missed it. She didn't miss anything.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So let's see here. Let's see what everybody's saying. So are you saying that Zellner knew this info and therefore purposely requested those bones? That's a possibility. I don't know that that's the case, but it's a possibility. But the fact of the matter is her reasoning is sound. If she tests those bones and they come back to Teresa, it undermines the confidence in the verdict, because Stephen Avery is not going to go dragging bones from the Manitowoc gravel pit to his own front door. That's just not going to happen. No matter how stupid you are, you're not going to do that. All right, let's see here. Post a link to the laws about releasing the bones that Lucy sent. Oh, there's Denise. Oh, that wasn't the right one. Dang it. All right, let's see here. Well done, cozy heads. Well, that news KZ knows there's right. Yeah. Zellner may just be calling their bluff, knowing they have no cards to play. Well, I'll tell you what, isn't it kind of interesting that she was in negotiations with Fallon and Gone and all that stuff to get obviously these bones, to do a microscopic examination on them? Not sure what that would have yielded, but she was asking for them to do that. But we also know that she was asking for the skull fragments. Okay. And I'm wondering what happened here. I mean, obviously there's no mention of the skull fragments here, but she wanted to get those too back then. And they were about to agree to it when suddenly Judge Angie drops the hammer and just kills it everything, kills everything, basically. So that now that deal that Zellner was making with the state and Fallon and Gone and whatever disappeared, faded away. Let's see here.
So she may have felt, last summer, she may have felt like she was set up, that they were negotiating about microscopically testing the pelvic bones, and they were leading her along the primrose path. And then they're thinking, man, we've got wind, and it may not be illegal. I mean, in a small county, you get wind of things, and man, Judge Angie's about to decide on that motion. Well, let's just see if we can string this out for another month. And she may feel like she got set up. She's like, okay, if you want to play it that way, I could play it that way too. Bring it on.
Right.
Start producing this stuff.
Right. Yeah, and then when you can't produce it, we'll take up that conversation when that day comes. All right, so everyone was questioning Zellner tweets. I kept saying she knows more people. She can't just out tweet it all. Yeah, that's true. She is likely still holding some things close to the vest.
One of her tweets yesterday was, we mentioned it just a minute ago. She said, "Oh yeah, I have no doubt they're going to give me the real bones if they still have them."
Right.
And
She actually said it.
Now you go back and look at that in 2020 hindsight, and you're like, whoa, okay, what did that really mean?
Yeah,
and then there was another question directly about, well, can the Halbach family throw a wrench into all of this? And then she said, no, because, the states consistently argued that these bones weren't human, and so therefore they can't be Teresa's. So, in essence, they have no legal standing to object to it. Well, now we know where these bones purportedly went.
Mm-hmm.
This brings up other issues about, what did they tell the Halbach family when they brought those bones? They were dropped off at the funeral home, the Whiting Funeral Home, but I'm wondering if they had a family representative there to meet them at the same time, and they're like, well, here's your Teresa, again, our condolences, and or did they tell them, hey, just to let you know, we don't want you to hear it from any other source, but part of what's contained in this receptacle, is that what they called it in the Big Lebowski? That's our lowest price receptacle, coffee, and they went and got a coffee can. But the contents of this include items that at trial we argued weren't worth even 20 seconds to spend talking about, because they weren't human and they weren't your daughter. But that's just part of the game we play in the trial business, and
right.
Hope you understand.
Did they mention that, right, when they were handing them over, right? Yeah.
Or is this going to be some awful new revelation for that family, that these are things that have been misrepresented to us all along? That may get them jumping on the bandwagon to say, no, you don't have to get an order to exhume. We'll get our own order and help you, and we'll speed the process along. And
right.
We want to find out what's going on here. But
Linda K asks, can the state kill this? Like, can they do something to kill this, the state?
Well, they're still free to oppose the motion and try and point out why this has no relevance or has no materiality. They could try and defeat the stay that way. And if they're unsuccessful with that, they can try and, show that the bones that they do have left are more than sufficient for the defense. There's all kinds of arguments back and forth. But
Okay.
there's
But
clearly
that
there's
wouldn't
clearly
actually kill
more.
it, though, right?
It's not going to kill it. It's going to be something. It's going to get nasty and ugly, and it's going to be a long, drawn out fight.
Yeah, it would seem. State has been obstructive at almost every turn. So, let's see. Judge Angela is still Sheboygan judge. Saw that question twice. So yeah, she's still the judge in Sheboygan.
Yeah, she ran unopposed a year ago because nobody in that area, just had the will to run. It's unfortunate. She ran unopposed, and so she's. Here's the good news, Sheboygan. You got her for another 6 years. Fourth most requested judge to be substituted.
So Falcon says it doesn't change the evidence, though, if they were even human. If they're even human.
All I can respond is go back and read her motion carefully. Yeah. It's all there. It's all there.
Okay, Julie Parker. For example, can they say we screwed up, but it has nothing to do with SA's case?
Well, that'd be a start. Read the question again. And actually, that's like a great question. I didn't mean to laugh at the question.
Right. So, for example, can they say we screwed up, but it has nothing to do with SA's case, Stephen Avery's case?
No, not really. These are bones that they argued were not human.
Right.
Bones that they are, let me put it in somebody way smarter words than mine. See, where is that? Do I have that? Here's a couple of tweets today from Zellner today. The way it works on post-conviction is we refute validity of evidence the jury heard and saw. The Avery jury neither heard nor saw anything regarding why multiple human bones and MGP. Too late to now spin new stories.
Right.
Hashtag out of luck. Hashtag storytelling over. Here's another one. The question is, why are so many human bones documented by Dr. Eisenberg on our worksheets as being located in NGP, but never mentioned by state at trial? Hashtag dumping ground. Right. Hashtag need answers, not spin. Here's a good one. I just read that one. State's theory based on location of evidence and linked to SA. So one, bullet is in SA's garage. Bones in SA's burn pit. So I've got 3, she's got 5. 1, bullet in the garage. Bones in the burn pit. Key in the trailer. Phone in the burn barrel. And the 5 that the RAV is located there. State fought idea of Teresa Halbach's bones in the gravel pit or RAV was ever off the Avery salvage yard. Hashtag DNA rules. She's been planning this for a year at least. She's brilliant at this.
Mm-hmm. So Judge Angela Sukowicz, could she kill this again like she did before? I guess, are they going to send it back down to her? Or are they going to send it to somebody else, you think? I mean, she clearly has ties to Kratz. She's clearly, I don't know, not really judging by, look, when I read her decisions or her orders and stuff, I get the feeling she didn't really understand. I don't know. Did anybody else get that feeling? I get the feeling she didn't really comprehend everything. She denied that 1,200-page motion way too quick. I don't think she really comprehended.
They filed a motion to substitute her. Zellner did this summer. and she denied it, but she didn't deny it outright and say she was offended. She just said it was a little bit premature. She may just want to dump it. She may not want, she may just call those people up and say, look, I didn't know you were going to put me in this kind of mess. You know, you got yourselves into this, you get yourselves out of it. I'm bailing on it. She may decide that. Zellner, you know, if it did get sent back to her for consideration of these smaller issues, what testing's going to happen, when's it going to happen, that sort of thing. Zellner may be okay with her. She commented a couple of times yesterday that she was, she never had any trouble with the appellate court. She was only trouble they had was the circuit court, meaning right. Judge Angie. Right. You know, it depends on how they order. You know, sometimes if an appellate court, as part of their order, indicates that Judge Angie had done something wrong, they almost bend backwards the other way to not, because judges hate to be reversed. Judges hate to be corrected. She doesn't seem like a legal heavyweight whatsoever in her legal analysis or reasoning. So I just don't think she would push back hard. So a lot of it depends on how the appellate court rules on, whether I think Zellner would want to go in and try another recusal. And like I said, she may just decide, this just isn't worth the effort. The publicity just isn't worth,
right.
the amount of work.
Right. So Julie said, "Oh, the first part of the question I just asked you from her." She said the first part is, if the state gets busted for giving these bones away, is there any way they can stop it from helping Stephen's case? I guess that's just a variation on can they kill it, right? Which I think we've answered, right? They can't really.
Well, I mean, it's the best analogy. I think her motion is well stated. I think she's going to get the testing, and then time will tell what the state has available for her to test. But this can they kill it? And I know what the sentiment underlying here this is that, okay, Brendan's won a new trial with the magistrate court. Okay, well, can anything happen to that? No, he's got it. He's got it made. Boom, he wins 2-1 in the Seventh Circuit. Well, can anything happen now? No way. The only thing that could happen is they'd order an en banc hearing, and they're not going to do that on something like this. Boom, en banc hearing. 7 out of the 11 judges decide to hear it, 4-3 against Brendan. And the sentiment was they killed it. And so, this is going to be a 3-judge panel. One of the judges, they're in the Second Circuit, and that court, that appeals court, is in Waukesha. There's 4 judges up there in that circuit, one of which is he was a legislator that was working on the Avery legislation to create funds for wrongfully convicted people, to raise the money he would have gotten. It was $25,000 up to $475,000 based on the number of years he was in prison. And so he would probably recuse himself. So it's going to be, again, I don't want to get into politics, but it's just the reality of criminal justice system. You're going to have, there's 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat. The legislator that worked with Stephen Avery back after he was exonerated would probably, he'd probably recuse himself. So you're going to have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. That's actually a pretty good mix. And that's But, they could rule 2-1 against her and say, this is all just this is just smoke and mirrors. File your brief and let's get on with this thing.
You're saying the appellate court can say that about this motion?
Yeah.
Okay, that answers the next question I was about to
It's
ask
a
you.
possibility.
Right.
So I don't want to mislead anybody, but I think it's a well-stated motion.
Right. So Dan Cokes, that's the answer to your question. That is a possibility. I judging by listening to Travis talk about it, I don't think he feels very confident about it, that it's going to happen, but I guess it's a possibility.
That's exactly right. I think it's a well-stated motion, and I think she's going to win on it. I think she's going to have a decision on it before her briefs due, and then we'll go to the next thing.
Let's see. A great headline: Judge quits the Avery case. Should listen to Kratz live. He was twisting a new state story. It was unreal. There was something he said. I was listening to that, and there was something he said that. Shoot, what was it? It was I can't remember what it was exactly now. Dang it. I was listening to Laura's feed, and there was something he said that just had me going, what? But I can't remember exactly what it was now. All right, let's see what we got. Hi, Joy. Let's see. Joseph, Falcon's in here. Falcon's in here, by the way. He's just in the chat just going, this doesn't change anything. This doesn't mean anything. This is pointless. This is ridiculous or whatever. And so everybody's arguing with him. So Joseph says, if the evidence is presented to tell a story, the murder does not occur without a sequence of events. The analysis of the evidence in this case does not tell a story of murder by S.A., which I think is, if they come back as Teresa's bones, I agree. That's what this says. That's what this tells us. That it doesn't make it's. Let me ask you this, Falcon. You go out tomorrow and you commit murder, and you don't want to get caught, right? So let's say you murdered this person 100 miles from your house, Falcon. Are you then going to bring parts of that person back to your own front doorstep if you're trying to hide it and not get caught? Answer me that. Riddle me that one. I respect Falcon too, but still, riddle me that one. Let's see here. See, your statement implies the jurors only saw the evidence. They heard days and days of elaborate stories and theories, Kratz and sweat DNA. Actually, the funny thing about Kratz and the sweat DNA is that at trial, he actually refers to it correctly. He actually calls it, he actually says that it's epithelial cells. He doesn't say sweat DNA. He knows. He knows the right terms. He knows.
Keep
right?
going. I'll be back in 10 seconds. Keep going.
Buddy. So he knows. He knows exactly what's going on there. He knows that what was on that hood latch was epithelial cells. And yet, he still, even though we know he knows that, he still, after MAM comes out, starts going around and telling everybody about how the officers had to be carrying around vials of sweat, of Stephen Avery's sweat, even though he knows it's epithelial cells. Okay? This is the part that kills me about this guy. He at trial demonstrates that he knows that it was epithelial cells, and that yet when Making a Murderer comes out, he still lies. He still makes up a lie and tells you about sweat DNA and how officers had to be carrying around little vials of sweat. He gets you thinking that's ridiculous, right? And he also prevents you from thinking about, what about swabs? That could have been, swabs that could have swabbed epithelial cells. He by making that assertion about sweat vials, he kind of draws attention away from swabs. This, to me, this is Ken Kratz's genius. He's an evil genius, But to me, it's his genius. This is how he works. This is the way this is the shady stuff he does, and this stuff works. In my opinion. So
in line with that excellent analysis you made about the sweat DNA, and in the holiday season, I've got a, I don't know if y'all can see this. Can you put the,
just on you?
Yeah, let's see. So, in the holidays, goodwill to all men. I just got today my order of sweaty balls. And, to all of you, season's greetings, King Kratz, sweaty ball.
Yeah, we gotta send some of those to Kratz. Tasty? All right. What do they make them out of? Well, you got your mouth full. Sorry. All right. Let's see. Let's go back to the comments here a little bit.
Oh, those are good balls.
All right. I made some cookies like those a couple weeks ago. You made sweaty balls, Julie? All right. Dan, it's a pretty easily proven fact that SA fire pit was not the primary burn site.
What's the burn site? What was that question?
It's T1 responding to Dan. It's a pretty easily proven fact the SA fire pit was not the primary burn site. That's what T1 was saying. Leslie Eisenberg thinks those may be human bones. Everybody's LOLing at your sweaty balls. Can the bones being sent to the Halbachs be enough in itself to get Stephen Avery's conviction vacated? Okay. No, and he addressed that question already. Actually, what would result from it is number one, they would probably order a new trial, and then at the new trial, the jury would be given specific instructions regarding that missing evidence, and that they are to infer basically that that it would have been favorable to Stephen, and that is the instruction that will be given to the jury in a new trial if they don't come up with them somehow, or if the other three bones aren't sufficient. If those aren't sufficient, then what could happen is like I said, new trial, jury gets an instruction that they are supposed to look unfavorably at the state regarding that evidence.
So here, it keeps coming back to this, and it's obviously an issue that even Catherine has to keep coming back to. I read her tweets, and she talks about, our job is to undermine the confidence, and that, the jury didn't hear this or that. So a prosecutor can't stand up in front of a jury and tell a pack of lies, nor can a prosecutor obtain a conviction based on mistaken evidence. It doesn't even have to be intentional. They're mistaken about what they present to a jury. That's grounds for a new trial. Here, and they pointed out in that motion, if people take the time to read it, their theory, their position, the facts that they asserted were that those bones weren't human. And yet, their own expert had in their notes that those were human bones. So that was either ineffective assistance of counsel, it was a misrepresentation by the prosecutor, or a mistake by the prosecutor. It doesn't matter. If they secured that conviction based on mistaken evidence, it's a new trial. And I don't understand. There's no dispute on the law about that. And That's one thing you notice with Kratz when he gets out there. What they left out of Making a Murderer. Well, what they never had in Making a Murderer 1 was they were never arguing the law. And then, Zellner gets right in his face. I mean, it's, I'm just not going to waste my breath on that guy. Guy's a serial stalker, sexual deviant, just a real piece of shit. And no respectful ethical lawyer would give him any credence whatsoever. No judge would be on stage with him. No reputable prosecutor would be on stage with him. No defense attorney would either, unless it was a big fat check. Maybe I'd get on stage with him. But he's just scum. But get me a reputable prosecutor that wants to talk about the law in Wisconsin, what it takes to get a new trial. Like the cases that have been cited in Zellner's motion right here that we went through. And you saw right in there 3 examples of cases that got reversed, sent back for a new trial because the DNA evidence showed that the state's theory was wrong.
Right.
I don't know how to make it any clearer than that.
Sure. Right. Rubber Ducky asks, would there be a jury in a new trial or just a judge? And since you're asking me, I'm going to say that it would have a jury, but then again, Zellner could choose to be heard by just the judge. I don't know what they call that, but I think that is a choice, but it would be a jury by default, right?
It varies state to state. Generally, it's in a criminal case. It's assumed that you want a jury. It's ultimately the client's decision. The client has to agree to waive a jury. That's called a bench trial.
Right, bench. There you go.
I suspect, I'm with you, that one, she's going to try and transfer that thing as far away as possible from that coast of Wisconsin and get it as close to Chicago as she possibly can, or possibly into Madison, and try that thing to a Madison jury.
Right. Adam Mink says epithelial cells can be planted easily. Did they ever prove where they came from, or just that they were SA? Because you can get them from urine, and I'm sure that they had his urine. Epithelial cells in urine? Because urine is one of the things that they can test for. Like they can do a preliminary test and find out if what they're testing is blood, semen, saliva, or what's it called, feces. I'm pretty sure it was feces. So it's like they can do presumptive testing or preliminary testing on something and find out if it's one of those 4 things. So if there's a test for urine, I would think that any test they do on urine would come back as urine, not epithelial cells. What do you think?
Yeah, Joseph would know better on this. Urine, it's going to have urea plus some other things in it that's easily testable, but it won't have DNA necessarily. Feces, you can test for fecal matter, but feces is digested plant matter. It doesn't have your cells in it. It's not going to have your DNA. What has DNA is a cell with a nucleus. That's where you get DNA. So semen, you're going to have the sperm cells have nucleus in it. What's referred to now as touch DNA, not sweat DNA, is you have some skin cells that slough off that are maybe in the oils or sweat of your fingers that are left behind. But you're right, the 4 substances that you can test for the presence of are, blood, urine, semen. What's the other one? I'm gonna have
Saliva.
another sweaty ball.
Saliva.
I think that saliva. There you go.
Yeah. Let's see here. The crusty urine around his toilet would be the same DNA. Jeez. Yeah. Travis and Erekose, what one question would you ask Kratz if you could? Oh, I almost called in today, Adrian. I almost did. I was on my way home, and I was just this close to calling into that show. You want to know what I'd ask him? Well, it's going to go along the lines of what I was just explaining to you guys about sweat DNA. I would say, Mr. Kratz, I know that at trial you understood what epithelial cells were and that you were referring to the hoodlatch DNA as epithelial cells. So my question to you, Mr. Kratz, is why, when MAM came out and you were complaining about how it was slanted and not providing all the facts and doing all of those things that you claim MAM was doing, and then you come out and start talking about sweat DNA in little vials of sweat that the officers would have to be carrying around. How did you suddenly forget what epithelial cells were? And that's essentially what I would ask Kratz, because that would pretty much shut him down, because he would be like, oh, because he knows at trial he did say epithelial cells. It shows that he knew the right way to refer to it, and chose, when MAM came out, to refer to it the wrong way anyway. So there you go. That's my question to Kratz. You got one? No? Okay.
Wow, 150 people watching right now, and it's 1 a.m. Some people are leaving. I know they got to go to work and whatnot. But,
yeah, I know.
I thanked before they go. I'm willing to hang around a little bit longer, but I want to thank Allie, and I want to thank Adrian for helping me, and then all of the other people that helped during the day today to get these documents and stuff together. Julie and Jason and Diane and
Big thanks to everybody. Big thanks to everybody. Yes, absolutely.
Total group effort, and our little wrecking crew came up with this. You heard it first here. I don't care what anybody tells you 2 years from now. Erekose busted this thing wide open, and sooner or later, this thing's going to reach ahead when she asks for those bones. What if they have them all?
And yet the documents say they gave them to the Halbachs? I know, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like, well, wait a minute. I thought you gave this stuff to the family. What's going on here? I mean, again, I would much rather be sitting in Catherine's seat than the state seat on trying to explain why you gave these bones away.
Right. So Joseph explains the urine here. Urine contains chemical compounds that can determine if it's urine. But the DNA that's in urine comes from the sloughed off epithelial cells from your urinary tract. So there's your interesting fact for the day, folks.
Or I think that's mostly true. It can also come from cancer cells. If you have bladder cancer,
right?
Sure. That's how they test for certain kidney cancer, certain types of cancer.
Yeah. Good night, Linda Kay. We're about to start shutting it down, I think, anyway, because it is late. No cells in poop, just corn. Oh, T1 said that you can't have just one sweaty ball, that you need to have another. It's proven fact. You can't eat just one. It's like Lay's potato chips, apparently.
Boy, those balls smell good, let me tell you.
What do they taste like? Are they like cinnamon, or what is the
chocolate with powdered sugar?
Oh, it's just chocolate and powdered sugar, huh? Oh.
Sweaty.
Good evening. How would Zellner find an impartial jury at this point?
It's going to be difficult. You'd probably have to bring in a panel, 300, 400 people, but you'd have to do questionnaires like Jerry and Dean did, try and filter it out. There's no doubt it would be difficult and very, very time consuming. It could take 2-3 months to pick a jury. You'd have to question them one at a time. Essentially they'd have to be living under a rock or, it'd be difficult, but it can be done.
Right. See, Kadon asks, do you know if KZ watches you? I don't know that KZ watches me. She has retweeted and liked a couple of my tweets in the past when I've tweeted a video or something. That's not any proof to me that she's watched it. But I guess we'll know after tonight, because if we've let the cat out of the bag that she wasn't exactly wanting to let out of the bag just yet, then we're likely to probably figure out if she's seen this video. But maybe not. Let's see. Koze's Wrecking Crew was hard at work today. Yeah, I love it. Cozy's Wrecking Crew, though. Those are the shirts we got to get made, and the hats. Cozy's Wrecking Crew. Hell yeah. That's awesome. Let's see. He's a really busy guy. I think the bones
You are so lucky. I'm so jealous of you that you got love from Kathleen Zellner. Every time I go in there and I try and I just please just answer a question, and then some guy got a happy birthday wish, and then you get a question answered, and Laura gets a question answered, and then you had another subscriber got a question answered yesterday, and I just cannot get any love from Catherine Zellner. I'm to the point now. I just to drive through her town would be enough for me.
Right. All right. Well, so everybody's saying thanks here. Let's see. I know several people that know nothing about the case. Okay. So Steve-O's talking about he knows of several people that don't know anything about the case, and therefore they would probably be potential jurors. Julie Parker wants the Erekose's Wrecking, or the Cozy's Wrecking Crew t-shirt. Bravo, Cozy Heads in the Wrecking Crew. Well done. Much love and respect. KZ is great at what she does. I'm sure she has a gift for turning guilters once she's in the courtroom. Everybody smash the like button. We're going to go ahead and play a little bit of Stacy Seabrook here. Unless Travis, obviously give Travis say anything in closing if he wants to.
Just thank you to everybody that worked on this. It was totally a Wrecking Crew effort. I'm just really proud of our little group. We were able to do solid research and come up with something that there's just no question that there is a major problem going on with these bones she wants to test. And it's going to be exciting to see what happens with them. Peace out. Love all of you guys. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks again to everybody that worked on this thing.
Absolutely. Everybody did a great job working on it. I mean, digging up all these documents to show all that, what was going on with those bones. Just really great job, everybody. Really great job. I mean, I was stuck somewhere way far away from home today, in a bad area with not really great, internet or cell signal. So, Travis and Allie and the Cozy Heads were working on this. You guys are all great. You guys are awesome. And you did an absolutely fantastic job. And let's go with Avery Road.
Wisconsin can be so cold.
The scales of justice can erode.
If we accept
Lies big and bold. we forget. We live on Avery Road. Thank you, and you're welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here. And thank you for showing the interest. You guys are all awesome.
Should be easy to see. This
Could be you, could be me. Shouldn't sit by idly, accepting everything that we are told.
I live on Avery Road. I live on Avery Road. On Avery Road.
All right, we still got over 100 viewers.
2 years since MAM, now here I go again. To confine innocent men in a 10 by 10 face.
Oh, now the man deserves.
But fear breeds silence in Manitowoc. You don't say nothing cause you know you're cops. But someone knows something, yet everyone plays ball. I say we round them all up. Let's brain fingerprint them all. Everything about the case was suspicious. I hope the Biden teeth of justice is so vicious. For those who read the lie, they temporarily preserve. From timing to typos to Brendan's so-called confession, to the fact that Peterson was out of town when she went missing. How can we forget Andy, Sam, William, Henry Cole? I say we round them all up. Let's brain fingerprint them all. So much planted evidence now anyone can see. The magic bullet and blood in the RAV. And even evidence that defies gravity. The key that turned up 7 searches later with none of her DNA at all. Let's brain fingerprint them all. I say we round them all up. Let's brain fingerprint them all. Who's pulling strings? I want to know that top rank. For those who pay attention, all the unbanked stank. Those that are smiling, they always knew who would take the fall. I say we round them all up. Let's brain fingerprint them all. I say we round them all up. Let's brain fingerprint them all.
Still over 100 viewers. Last song.
Elvis has left the building.
Yeah, apparently, because I cannot get. What the hell? There we go. Last one. This one's playing us out, folks.
Don't get straight, no, no, no. I ain't getting straight. Don't get straight. I ain't getting straight. I'm sick of the suffering. It's and the pain. Don't get straight. Well, we know the story. Always the way they said we can see. Day to day, they got you Brennan's head. Totally insane. Don't get straight. Everything they got, questionable evidence gathered by many walls, but it makes such sense. While they're in the game, don't get straight. Don't get straight, no, no, no. Oh, now I ain't getting straight. Don't get straight. I ain't getting straight. And that lying, that cheating, that predatory sweaty, anything he said,
You can throw away. He's a legal stain.
don't get straight.
I love it when Stacy calls him a legal stain. Love it.
We find out who's to blame. Don't get straight.
You're all very welcome. All right, folks. That's it for tonight. Let me switch back to my camera real quick. All right, so that's it for tonight, folks. Obviously, we'll probably be back tomorrow. Something else. We'll see how it goes. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. We'll see ya.